I bid you good day. I bid you welcome as we approach another topic, and from a different perspective as well. Today, we bring the subject of woman, womanhood, and to reimagine this, if at all possible. To reimagine what it is to be a woman, to see one, to know one, to choose to be one, to become one, to evolve as one. For there are many different aspects of this as well, even before birth, even before one chooses to express oneself in this way. So we will call this a new guide, a new idea, a new expression. And of course, be it that this day we explore the feminine gender, woman, womanhood, know of course that in a very near future episode expression we will explore the opposite, or the same, as we will come to see, different and unique each one. So we will call this a field guide, since you already find yourself in one gender or another. It is a study guide, it is a field guide, for one that is already on the run, one that has already made a decision, one that already has an understanding or an idea of what it is to be a woman or be in relationship with woman, as all are in some way, whether it be mother, mother-son, sister-brother, husband-wife, any form of relationship, woman to woman, what it be in sacred, for all forms of relationship are sacred as they have ever and always been, even though time to time, as relationships evolve, they in fact become something entirely different. They are reimagined. So it is important that we study this subject today, that we look into it in the ways that we do, that we, the earth, and you, reimagine what it is to be woman or what it is to be feminine. It is a subject that is near and dear to the earth, for there are many that would say, Gaia and Mother Earth, the feminine face, a feminine planet. And indeed, although planets are not gender-based, the energies that they offer, the teachings that they give, that which they most demonstrate, or even in the ways that they evolve, can also be masculine and feminine. And in that way, the sentience of the earth, Gaia, is currently in a feminine aspect. The earth has not always been a feminine planet. Sometimes, in fact, it has been masculine. If we were to take one of my counterparts, one of my family members, Vulcan, for instance, or if we were to take, for instance, that which would be Mars, brother Mars, then in that way as well, that is also perceived as very masculine. So it is not the celestial body itself that is masculine, it is what it portrays. It is the energy that it carries. It is how it offers itself and shares itself. This is what is considered then most masculine or most feminine. So in this case then, Gaia currently is in a feminine phase. Now the same be true of woman or womanhood. Womanhood then, the feminine woman or the feminine gender, is currently in a feminine state, and one that has been moving more towards a masculine state. Now, you must understand that although you may think of woman as feminine and man as masculine, both in fact carry both halves in order to be whole. So a masculine male has a feminine side, and even the most feminine female has at times a weak or a strong masculine energy as well. It is impossible for one to be completely one gender and not carry the other. In fact, if one expresses one gender in the physical, it is obvious then that the other gender is carried in the non-physical, which is not the same as to say in the personality. Not the same as to say in the characteristics. It is carried. It is carried in non-physical ways. It is carried in the energy. It is carried in how one offers oneself in life. It is carried in the hemispheres of the brain, in the expressions of life. So it is much more than to say it is an expression of personality, as we will soon see. So lightly we have touched upon the subject. Lightly we have said that all things, be they celestial bodies or physical human, woman and mankind, are not necessarily one gender, and in fact are both, that they lean towards one aspect or another at particular cycles of time, displaying some characteristics at times more strongly or more prominently than others. And it is also seen that one cannot exist without the other, that they appear to be two halves of a whole, and in fact are both very much whole, and still looking to the other for a greater expression. Remember that our topic here is not simply to explain what you already know in terms of what today's woman is, or the challenges that today's woman faces, though we may certainly look upon these as well. It is to reimagine the idea of what a woman is. It is to reimagine, in essence, all that is feminine or what it is not as well, so that you will see what the woman is evolving into, where it has come, how it is layered and structured in the ways that it is, and what it is moving into, for this would be of greater assistance to you of all the other aspects of the topic as well. To understand woman, one must understand nature. And since, for the most part, humanity does not yet understand the natural rhythms and cycles of nature, it is difficult then to understand womankind, womanhood. Whether it is the woman attempting to understand itself, to know itself, or particularly if it is man or the masculine nature attempting to understand the feminine face or its own feminine nature. And so it appears then that the sexes are opposite to one another, that they express opposite tendencies, Mars and Venus as you have come to know it. But of course that is not entirely so. It is more because you do not understand nature, how nature moves, what faces it shows you, what are the inward face and the outward face, and all of the different aspects. It is this, in fact, that allows each one to come to know what one sees and what one knows as the greater truths in that way. And so as the time comes forward to see and to know what humanity is and how it expresses itself and where it has come from, the face changes. The face of God, the face of the mother, the face of all of the belief systems upon the earth, all of these then are based upon the nature that is present upon the earth. During the time of great volcanic uprisings long upon the earth expressed then its masculine nature. Now in the greening of the world, now in the melting of the ice, now in the warming of the climate, it is the feminine face that wants most of all to be seen, to be known, to be heard, and to be understood. And so now there are climatologists studying climate change, and naturologists studying everything in nature that is changing. And you see that the earth is greening and browning and becoming more blue, more liquid, more warm. All of this then, all of these seemingly structural, elemental, resourceful changes of the earth, you may not think of it, but this also changes the structure of the genders of the earth human, and of every other species upon the earth. What it thinks, what it does, how it expresses itself. It changes all of the faces of nature upon the earth. So the earth is not only your home, not only your backdrop, not only your resource, not only your teacher. In essence, it is the very material that you use to dress yourselves in. And of course, this being not only physical human clothing to adorn yourselves or warm your bodies with, it is also then the very skin that you wear, the very design of the body, whether the body is tall or short, muscular or not, whether the weight is slim or skewed more towards density, or in all of the different ways in which humanity expresses itself. This also then is not gender, but it is nature. And so to understand a woman, to reimagine a woman, imagine nature. Imagine nature remaking itself because it can, because it wants to, because it is sentient, because it is able to choose, because its evolution asks it, because it gives rise to new thoughts, because it gives birth to a different kind of life and to new possibilities. So if you will allow yourself to reimagine this year, to reimagine the evolution of the earth, allow yourself as well to reimagine what a woman is, and in fact, that it is evolving now into becoming something a little bit different. Womankind upon the earth then has looked and seemed many different ways in appearance as well. Perhaps you have heard of times in which there were Amazonian women, grand and large and muscular cultures of women. Yes, it was so. Yes, they had their own culture, their own ideas, their own lifestyles. They lived at times with mans and at times apart from them by their own choosing. It was not against, it was not for. It was a different culture, a different idea of life. And there were, in fact, several kinds, body types and styles of womans then making their way upon the earth at that time, some looking very little like the women that you know today. And so they were taller and more muscular, a little bit like what you might imagine a young man to look like. And from there, they did not necessarily become more masculine looking, but they also did not become more feminine looking. They maintained a certain androgyny, a certain substance that said, this is both man and woman. The best of all of its qualities, the best that you might imagine. Imagine that you will take the best of every gender and allow it to be held in one. That was the Amazonian woman. And for several hundred years did they have their place upon the earth as well, in one way and another. This is one example of a different way that a woman, womankind, can be imagined, and different ways that it has expressed itself upon the earth for a variety of different reasons. What do you think of as patriarchal and matriarchal societies? These have also had to do not simply by the changes in society and culture and politics, but in the very makeup, in the very face, in the very essence of what the species was or how it offered itself. And so during matriarchal times, the woman then was in fact a little bit larger, a little bit stronger, a little bit more, well, you would say organized or left-brain organization. And there was a desire just as well to bring forth children, to rear them, but not as what you might imagine the smaller of the genders or the less important of them. Here there was a great equality. Here there was a great knowingness that a child could be what it would be. But yes, that man's child were raised at times by woman until a certain age, and then turned over to the culture of man's, there to be made into a better or greater or adult man. And the same be true of woman's, where they were taught not simply the domestic arts of cooking or sewing or gathering, but in fact all of the deeper and greater knowledge of life, and perhaps during those times more than the man would know. For in the cycles of matriarchy, then, it was the woman's that would bear the secrets of the earth, the secrets of making and knowing and creative life. These were known to the woman, and to very few man, and those that were man knew enough to be silent to know that in fact they did live at that time in a matriarchal society, and were they privy to know the secrets of making and creating life, well, special they were. In that time, yes, it was woman's that carried child to term, but there were unique and special cases as well, in where men could carry a child to term as well. Indeed, there are different body types and styles, where each one could carry something like a womb, something like a vessel within oneself. And no, it was not the same as to bear the child through the birth canal, and yet you would be surprised at the versatility of the human being, how it can conceive of a different idea of how to conceive as well. So the history of the earth, the history of your human bodies, of humanity, is more varied than you imagine. It is more diverse than you imagine. And although for century upon century and age upon age, it is woman stylized something as you know now, allow for the fact that there have been a great many variances, times of great variety, where woman did not look like woman, and man not entirely like man, and yet gender-specific has been the earth. Again, remember, we are reimagining what a woman is. We are not defining. We are not describing the role of a woman or how to free itself from where it has placed itself now. We are imagining all of the different ways in which woman has been upon the earth, how it has expressed itself, and how in fact it is beginning to evolve now in order to express itself uniquely and differently again. To reimagine a woman then is to understand nature, as we have said, and the very cycles of nature. For the cycles of nature are also the cycles of a woman, and in fact these cycles are experienced daily and then monthly through the cycles or the menses of the woman, and then by the woman's seasons. And in all other aspects it is nature that always speaks in the voice of woman, and woman that carries nature's vessels as her own. And so to say that during one day woman might know all of the seasons and express these in the personality, that would be accurate. To say that woman contains all of the elements of the earth, all of those naturally contained and exposed elements, and to nurture them and care for them and give birth to them and call them her own, that is also to say woman. And to say that all of the liquids are the fluids of the woman, whether they be the sexual fluids or the blood typing of the woman, that is also accurate. For the rivers of life are also the rivers of womanhood. In so saying, it is woman's face that knows nature. It is the woman that is the study, in fact, of all the kingdoms of nature. All of them are contained within the woman. The mammals and the reptiles and the aquatics and more are all contained within the seasons of the woman. And those of every type, whether they be those that take to the air and the birds and the avians, whether it is to be those that frolic and play in the waters, whether it is to be those that walk upon the earth as the four-leggeds and the two-leggeds, and even those that go between and underneath the earth, these are also contained in woman. For it is woman that has the ability to bring forward form and type, and to style these, and to describe them, and to cause them to evolve. It is woman that does this and that influences this most, because it is woman's that is most tied to nature. to the tides of nature, to the faces of the moon, are the faces of woman's nature as well. Earth and moon, and family and kin is nature. So to imagine a woman, imagine all of this contained within a vessel, within a form. To say that all of this throughout all of time, for it is woman that brings forward life, reimagines life, offers it forward, and says that it, in fact, is its mother, or its true mother. It is its clan. It is its original clanswoman. It is the original grandmother, grandmother moon, and grandmother earth, and grandmother of the original tribes. All of these are a way to say that woman is first, that woman is last, that woman, in fact, is the bringer forward of the face of God, or the masculine face of God. So it is woman, the idea of form, that gives birth to thought, or to idea in form. Now hear this then. It is the idea, or the formlessness, or the pure image or imagination that imagined a perfect form, a perfect vessel, in which for all of this, for nature to live, to exist. So it is the idea, the masculine idea of the all, that conceived of the original idea of form, of vessel, the perfect vessel. For a perfect idea can only give birth to a perfect thought, or a thought that can then bring about its own form. In this way, man, or the masculine face, at one time brought forward the idea, the perfect image of what would then need to bring forward form. So the masculine idea or thought imagined or created woman by creating the perfect image of itself that could also bring forward form. For idea on its own cannot. And so idea did not divide itself, but in fact mirrored itself in such a way that what was created was the perfect idea, a perfect creation. And a perfect creation is able to create, and in this case, to create life or life form. The perfect image, the perfect idea created by reflection, the perfect light of itself, imagined it perfect and whole and with form. That is where woman came from. And what you call the division of the sexes, or that each one is half, they are not. They are a perfect reflection of one another, both containing each other, one in formlessness and the other in form. And yet, because there is such unique difference between formless and form, they appear to you to be entirely different. So that man appears to be entirely different than woman. The form is different, the functions are different, or so you believe in your time. And so man became man and woman became woman, seemingly divided and different. And yet they were both perfect reflections and remain so to this day. And that is why they can, in fact, reimagine themselves. They can reimagine themselves and they can reimagine each other uniquely and differently. How does man evolve? By reimagining a different woman. How does woman evolve? By reimagining a different man. And these imaginations, as we have called them, are ways to create perfect life or perfect evolution of life, by which life transcends current or obsolete laws in favor of new ones. New laws that are imagined and then brought into form, because the idea exists now between both. In a sense, this is to say perfect thought transference means perfect form transference or evolution. And so each one reimagines a desire to become a fulfillment of the other, or an expression of fulfillment. It is important to describe it this way, because otherwise you would be caught in thinking, well, it is only a thought that is different, so it is only woman that is changing then. Is Gaia describing the ways in which womankind is changing? No. We are speaking of the desire to evolve, and that each one must reflect that to the other in a perfect way in order for it to take place. It is not the same as to say, why don't you change a little bit so that we'll get on better? You change this and I'll change that and we'll get along a little bit better. That is not what we are speaking of in this day's topic. Today we reimagine the entire relationship that woman has with woman, and so the relationship that woman has with man. It is the cycles of woman then governed by the cycles of nature. As the cycles of nature are currently being accelerated, given force, given a prominent standing, the resources of the earth, be they in lack or be they in plenty, as these are primary focus for the earth now, as the cycles and seasons are changing, that which is most influenced by the cycles and seasons is as well, and that is womankind. To a certain extent, one could say that the same is taking place in other species, and in the feminine version, the female of many species. But that is more a note of the earth's evolution, of the earth's species and elements. Where humankind, where womankind is concerned, it comes from a conscious place, a uniqueness that evolves consciousness separate, or in a separate garden of thought, if you like, than that which evolves physical form. So the cycles of the earth are accelerating. They are accelerating, more quickening, and so that which is woman also becomes quickened, the pulse, the heartbeat of woman's. And here I will tell you that you may already note it, that many women's have what you might consider a faster pulse, a heart palpitations now, and a slight fear of the chest, even what you would consider the breast cancer. Yes, there is an acceleration of this now because the humankind woman species is accelerating as well. And the accelerated pace of the growth can bring about an abnormal growth in cells. So it is important, then, in reimagining oneself, that it is allowed to be. Imagine the woman becoming more masculine. Imagine the woman becoming more whole. Imagine the woman carrying both genders, carrying both child and man within her form. So imagine the womankind then giving birth not only to the babe, to the newborn babe, but to the newborn man as well. For it is the form that is woman that carries the face of the formlessness, or the next generations that are now coming and evolving very quickly upon the earth as well. So the cycles of woman, governed by the cycles of nature, evolving at a more accelerated pace, governed by the perfect reflection of the original thoughts encoded between both reflections that later became thought of as genders. And all this by way of reimagining life upon the earth. So you will see that I take you back and forth in keeping this subject open and neutral, again, so that you will think of woman in the largest, the most complete way possible. To continue to reimagine woman, then, is to see the wisdom of the woman, the Sophia, the feminine face of God. It is the woman that carries God, if you like. That is why, in many ways, you see, in many of the religious artifacts, you see the woman carrying the babe, if you like. It is the woman carrying God, or the masculine face of God carrying man, if you like. Many times this imagery shows the babe sitting on the woman, on the lap, on the knee, being carried in arms, or what it will be. The depiction of this is not simply of the one holy master or teacher. In fact, it is to say that all are holy masters and teachers, and that it is the woman's shape, body, form, the feminine form, wisdom of the God all that brings forth man, or brings forth human upon the earth. So with the acceleration, then, the wisdom that is both God and Gaia, if you like, accelerate, creating then more territory, more fertile ground in both form and formlessness for all things that are wise upon the earth. So wisdom grows upon the earth now. It spreads, awakening spreads, consciousness spreads. It spreads from woman. It is contagious, if you like, so that each generation, that each one that is born becomes a little bit more conscious, a little bit more present than the one next to it or that the one before it. For the constant and frequent evolution of the earth causes woman, the feminine face, to bring forward an accelerated or next evolutionary step. Now, the more that the future evolutionaries are come forward, are born, the more that those that have existed in the past form will, in some ways, become not obsolete, but spent, in the ways that nature spends itself, in the way nature that when summer has completed and fall, autumn comes, it has used every branch, every leaf, it has borne fruit completely. It has exhausted itself in giving forward life, so that it is able to regenerate itself by yielding to the next season and to the next generation. In this way, you will see that woman now becomes the next generation of woman, hence our subject for today. For woman is now reimagining woman and giving birth to new woman, therefore new man, therefore new ideas or consciousness. To reimagine woman, then, is to give to her more possibility, is to expand the vocabulary, is to expand the idea, the library of the earth, is to expand what is consciously seen or has form. This goes by way of saying that man, human, and woman, then, have the ability, the conscious ability to see further and to know more, to develop beyond what has been developed thus far. In all ways, this would then be a stronger feminine body type, a little bit taller, a little bit thinner, a little bit more elongated in certain areas, particularly the neck, a little bit the legs. And so the very structure of woman will evolve a little bit. And over time, over the next 100 to 200 years, a very quick moment, and in some cases much faster than that, the woman will take on a slightly different shape, a little bit like what you might imagine a runner's body to be, a marathoner, if you like, a slightly more elongated, more muscular, more adept, and at the same time compact in energy, This will be some of the physical changes that you will see to the woman. And so the breastplate, or the structure that carries the breast, will also then hold itself a little bit more upright, shoulders back a little bit more, so that the woman will not be in the position of suffering, or having suffered the birth or the burdens of the earth, or in some ways of giving it structure. It is the woman that will no longer be as considered now, whether it is to be the secondary citizenry, or that which is looked down upon, frowned upon, or for some reason thought of as less than man. Once again, woman will be uplifted to a rightful or even or balanced place among men. There will be greater equality then. Greater equality in many different ways, not simply in what you would term the jobs, careers field, where one is equivalent to the other, but many other equivalencies as well, in thoughts and ideas and complexities in this way. Long ago, and during times upon the earth, when there was, in fact, brother-sister marriages or marriage contracts or monarchies, these were during times in which there was, in fact, a great equality between the two. It was truly seen as two perfect halves or two perfect wholes. Two perfect wholes, then, would be, of course, the ones to direct the future of a country, or of a governance, or of that which was sacred. So to understand, then, brother-sister is not to say, 'tis an incestuous thing. In fact, it is to say it is a thing of equality. It is a thing of great balance, therefore great beauty. So to reimagine woman, then, we must also reimagine the biology a little bit, not to make it more masculine, but to give it a different form. And so the woman that currently struggles greatly and deeply to regain a shape, a figure that is more feminine, to reduce a size or a density, it is in fact because there is so much evolution taking place now within the woman's body that it causes the consternation that it does. And the woman then has what by which to compare itself to? It cannot compare itself to its predecessors. It knows not yet the future that awaits it. And so, in order to find some scale or some measure, it attempts in futileness to compare itself to the man and to say, I am equal to you. I can do those same things that you can do. Well, of course. But the very thought that one must compare oneself to the masculine structure belies the need that it is not celebrating its own structure, that it is saying, I would rather look or be more like you. For if I was more like you, perhaps I would have, whether it be more respect or a higher ideal, or even the esteem that the womankind of today struggles with so very much. To reimagine womankind, then, is to acknowledge that there is an equality that cannot be measured, because it has nothing to measure itself against. See, that is the difficulty. When humanity measures itself against something, that is what it often does. It sees the contrast. It sees the differences. It sees what is unlikely to happen or what is unlikely to change. It sees what is lacking. It sees what does not measure rather than what does. It sees the parts that remain in shadow. It sees the parts that shout, not the parts that are silent, not because they have been subjugated, but because they are already in peace. So know then that there is a woman within each woman that lives and exists in complete peace, in complete harmony in the ways that nature is always in harmony, even when it appears not to be. Even when the winds howl as they do, it is perfect, for the winds move between the branches and through the leaves. It does not come up against itself. It only comes up against those things that appear or attempt to be immovable. So the face of wisdom, the woman's face of wisdom, in some ways is the same face as nature, with all of the same characteristics, and yes, the force and the fury and the silence and the peace and the beauty and the nurturing and the spring awakening and the sleep slumber. All of this is to reimagine woman through the changing cycles, the accelerated changing cycles of nature. So it is to say that the knowledge within the woman will not change, but the wisdom will. It is to say that woman will become more wise in ways that is difficult to explain yet. How does one explain the earth becoming wiser? How does one explain a humanity or a race becoming wiser? For you would only say, well, if we were wiser, perhaps we would not war. Well, perhaps. But perhaps it is wisdom instead that will tell you the reasons for war or not. Perhaps it will say then what will satiate a thought, what will not provoke the thought that is next to it, so that war is not necessary. Perhaps it is the wisdom of the womankind, not so that it is so much more peaceful than the man, but it simply knows what peace is and can dwell there for a little longer, without disturbing or awakening its neighbor, that may not be ever as peaceful as itself. So the wisdom of the earth comes through the wisdom of the woman now, and that is when you will begin to see greater changes upon the earth, when you begin to see even more and greater the rise of woman upon the earth, not necessarily in positions of power, and yet in power position, in a position to effect change. See? Not in power in order to rule or to govern, not that kind of power, but the kind of power that determines what is, and so determines what is next. This is what you will begin to see as the earth continues to awaken itself and to reawaken its own wisdom in coming into the new and the next age. So the reimagining of woman includes a different kind of wisdom, one that is carried in a place of peace, one that does not provoke the man, one that does not struggle or fight for an equality, but instead recognizes a peaceful resonance with the cycles that offer themselves from the earth. And what greater power is there than that upon the earth? What greater power is there than to know what rules, what offers itself from the very core of the earth, from the very womb of the earth, and how to use it? So it is womankind, then, that will bring forth the next and newer ideas in terms of science, of the newer resources, in terms of visioning what can be seen in the further reaches of space. It is the wisdom of womankind that will begin to bring together the disparities between religion or spirituality and the halls of science, between the histories and the archaeologies of the past and the visionaries of the future. You will see more of this form of leadership or reimagining coming from woman and womankind than you have seen from the masculine. And remember that we will pay great homage to the masculine form as well, but not in this and now speaking. Along with the wisdom of the earth, then, that continues to make itself, comes the wisdom of the biology of the woman as well, the changing form of the body, as we have said, to make itself unique and perfect, to elongate itself a bit, to refine its body and its form, to refine the heart so that it will have its own unique pulse, a little bit different than that of the earth, a little bit different than that of man, not simply faster or slower, but with a sound, with a rhythm, truly with a pulse that becomes that of accelerated woman or new woman. So the biology of the woman then begins to change itself as well, so that the woman becomes wiser at a younger age, so that, yes, all things relative to the growth of woman, puberty, becomes accelerated at a much younger age already, as you are seeing, in young girls then, to the ages of 8 and 9, becoming pubescent and moving into a place of wisdom at a younger age that they will know as well. So the biology of woman is in transition, and it will offer itself in unique and different ways as well, changing its form and offering itself in the different ways, even as the psychology of woman or the mind of woman, even this will change, and it will fall into a different flow, into a different understanding of itself, into understanding its own cyclic nature, and what hours and what days and what aspects and faces of the moon are most in complement with its wisdom. To understand the wisdom of womanhood, the wisdom of the Sophia, the wisdom of the feminine face of God, is to understand that it is woman that will reimagine her mind. It is woman that will begin to bridge together the left hemisphere of reason and logic with the right hemisphere of creativity and the extensions of those things that form creates in art. It is even in these extensions that the psychology, the mind, spirit, soul of a woman will come forward to remake itself in a different way, so that psychology, biology, the studies of the sciences of womankind, of humankind, will begin to offer themselves in unique and different ways. In the same way, it is the spirit of woman. What a woman is. A woman is what she imagines herself to be, and that is why we call this the reimagining of woman or womankind. A woman is not simply a gender or an idea or an expression or a half. It is in fact the full spirit, the full embodiment of the face, of form and formlessness, come into being or come into idea. It is the living idea of all things grand and perfect. The spirit of woman, then, is to say it is the spirit of nature, that which is in fact wild, the wild mustang, if you like. Can you tame the wild mustang? Perhaps, and for a time. But given certain circumstances and certain opportunities, the mustang will return to the wild and to its own ways. And so now womankind in its spirit does the same. It is womankind that now returns to its own true nature, to its own true spirit, remembering where it has come from, remembering its histories, remembering its lineage, and beginning to call upon the strength of that, into the strength of the sisters, into the strength of the mothers and the grandmothers. It is the womankind that calls upon its own spirit, calls upon its own essence in order to give birth to itself, for only wisdom can give birth to wisdom, and in the shape of form. So wisdom takes form. Wisdom becomes rooted upon the earth, and it is woman then that ushers in the new age by planting new seeds within the earth for the new season, for the new and the next age. It is the spirit that does this first. It is the spirit that is wild. It is the spirit that therefore knows the wilderness and is not lost in the wilderness, but knows where to find home, even in the wild, where to find shelter, where to find promise, where to find wholeness. So it is the spirit of the woman, then, evolving her true and next being. Womankind now births womankind. Womankind now births the next and the new age by studying the moon, by lifting the very pulse of the earth, by changing the fluids of life, changing their flow, changing the direction that they take. It is woman that will discover first how to rejuvenate her nature first. Then she will rejuvenate her form. Now it is that you see in the form of a woman those that will age in premature ways, those which will forget their roots, and so they become lost, and so dementia becomes that which is more a part of the woman's life. To see oneself then without the own known truth of the Sophia principle. And so woman becomes sophist again, from the Sophia of the original wisdom, to rebirth and to reimagine its spirit and to create the future of womankind. What is the future of woman, then? The future of woman includes, then, a biology that is changing and evolving itself and will continue to do so. One that is even more in tune and in tide with the cycles of the earth and of nature. In order for womankind to find herself more in tune with its own cycles, it will need to move away from some of the artificial decisions and artificial ideas that it has held. It will need to change how it looks upon the idea of birth, how it cultivates its body or protects itself from an unwanted birth. So it is not to say that this is not necessary or possible, but that there are in fact new and different rhythms to life itself, that in understanding the body and the evolution of the body would give rise to woman's own ability to know and to choose the time and choice of what and when and how she will bring forth life, and in fact whether it be masculine or feminine life that she will choose to carry by her own wisdom, by her own idea of herself. So the future of womankind is today's future. Here, in reimagining a woman, we are not speaking necessarily of a few hundred years or centuries from now. We are speaking of that which is taking place now. We are speaking of a guide, a way to reimagine what you are. If you are a woman, what you see or what you know, if you happen to know one. A field guide for those already in body, not for those who see a future place for themselves. A field guide, one in which active participation is necessary, one in which on the go one shifts or becomes something else, because it is instilled or because it is installed within one. The ability, the necessity, the desire for all those things that do not evolve of their own nature will become corrupted in some way. And yes, bodies become corrupted too, as do minds and ideas. At the end of an age, it is that all or most ideas become corrupted. This means to say that they have been influenced by something that is less than truth. That is what a corruption is. It is an influence that changes, that destroys, in order to create, by including something that is obsolete, no longer true, or in opposition to itself. That is why womankind finds itself in difficulty now, because it is in opposition to itself. It fights with itself, and it fights with the other genders. It fights to become something, to know something. It insists to be uplifted, or to be seen, or to be heard, or to be not judged, or to be removed from its current situation. But it fights against its captors without setting itself free. It fights against its own old ideas of itself without liberating itself. So it is the idea of woman, of the very spirit, that must first be changed then, and then the circumstances that perhaps you see round the earth, the abuses that you will see round the earth, these will unmake themselves in time by womankind's own choice. When it sees itself potent and powerful enough, it will undo, it will unmake what it has allowed to come forward, and it will unleash in its own way its own furies, its own natures, as only nature can do. And it is not to say that it will turn and become attackers or aggressors against those that have oppressed it. In fact, it will become the peacemakers and the leaders of the world. It will awaken those things and those beings that are still asleep. It will awaken its new resources within itself, and so within the future generations. The new ideas and the ancient ones and the future ones. It is womankind that is reimagining itself. So be it, sweet one. The subject, has it been well covered? Oh no. This has been only but a brief explanation of what is taking place now, the briefest of all, and it is a subject that we will come to know better, to explore in more depth. It is one that I promise that we will revisit. But for now, let your imagination run wild. Let the wild woman live within, and the peaceful sage as well. And the children's storyteller, let this one live within you as well. Let the maiden live, and let the crone be set free, so that there is no crone that is any more than the beauty of the maturity of the mature tree. Let the smallest of the babes, then, be born into the wisdom of the great, be initiated by the sun and the moon and the earth into the great family, so that masculine and feminine reign as one and within one, even in the beauty that is the face and the body of woman. I raise a glass to you then, as if in toast, and say, reimagine woman, uplift her, give her life, give her long life, give her purpose, give her reason, give her logic, give her beauty, give her tools, give her nature itself, as I have done, and you will see yet what she is able to give you in return. Until the next moment, sweet ones, I bid you good day.